understand if you cannot. And let me get everyone in here. And let me get my screens all set up. All right. Yes. Welcome to day 2. Today is all about reclaiming back your personal power. Sorry, I'm getting my screens more situated. Okay. And we're going to be going through a powerful process together today so you can really experience a taste of this work. So please make sure that if you are distracted or you're driving or multitasking, that you are slowly bringing yourself to a place where you can really settle in. Now, we're going to be doing it later on, so you have time to get yourself situated. But if you are able to be at a place where you're totally undisturbed, then that will be amazing. I just wanted to put that out there right now so you can get prepared and make sure that you are getting as much out of this as possible. Now, before we dive into the training, I would love to hear if anyone had a chance to experiment with a wonder-driven mind, if there were any just aha moments or moments where you applied it and you noticed a little bit of a shift of the way you were looking at things. Please feel free to type into the chat. I love hearing from you. I love hearing any questions, any of that. So please know you can chat at any time to just let us know what you've been up to, how you've been integrating in day 1, or if there's been any challenges with it, or, things that you've run into. Those are all welcome here as well, because as we said on day 1, we are all about taking messy, uncertain action, and we are not about perfectionism or getting things right the first time, because that's just not how things work in life. So, all right, I am going to go ahead. I'm just going to mute everybody just in case. And let me share my screen, and please feel free to make sure you can see it. All right. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. And if at any point you're having issues seeing it, just let me know. Oh, I love what Wendy said. My symptoms keep shifting back and forth. I'm leaning in to not trying to fix anything and observe. Absolutely beautiful. And I'm curious, to hear how that just shift is, what it's like to just approach it from a different way. Yes, to the just being able to observe. There's an analogy that I always think of is, imagine you needed a surgery and the surgeon was like, oh, I can't look at that thing. I'm just going to fix it by not looking at it and just hope for the best, right? We will get away from it, versus being like, let me really look. Let me get to know this deeply. Let me make sure I fully understand what's happening here, what needs attending to. And we're taking our time to observe, right? Often that can be what the observation process can do for us. All right. And then Terry said, I've definitely liked the feeling of relief that I've had. Oh, I love that when I feel a bit of pain in my hip and then just pause to wonder about it. I'm observing that at the moment and I like it. Oh, I love that. Yes, to just that being that third party observer to ourselves is so powerful. Not stressing about eating something wrong or didn't do my routine right. Oh, yes. I'm noticing how much I beat myself up before and really learning about compassion. Yes, compassion. Oh my goodness. It is the crux of this work, and it is so challenging because so often we feel like if we are compassionate to ourselves, that then we're going to end up on the couch eating Cheetos all day or something, right? When the reality is when we can be compassionate, that's when our true power comes out. So, all right, let me get into things. I love hearing these, so please feel free to keep sharing. Okay, you can see my screen. And before we dive into the training, I wanted you to just meet someone. This is Michael Ann. Her and I worked together, or before we started working together, she was unable to have penetrative sex, and she had other chronic pain and migraines and neck pain that was really impacting her life. She had seen so many different practitioners and providers and was really feeling pretty apprehensive about trying out yet another person. Cost was definitely a huge concern, as she had already spent not just like money, but so much time and energy and coaching, physical therapy, doctor's appointments. And she had this huge fear that this was going to be another thing that just wouldn't work for her. And she also had layers then of fear of being gaslit, because that had happened many times in her appointments, and fears about not being listened to, or kind of just told to push through, or just being made felt like being made to feel like she was doing something wrong. And Michael Ann's fears are not at all uncommon. I'm sure you all can relate to at least some of them. In fact, almost everybody I speak to has some version of these fears, because a lot of time, money, and energy has already been spent looking for solutions. And there often is a lot of gaslighting that happens in doctor's appointments, through different practitioners and different approaches. And often, when there have been many unsuccessful things that have been tried, it can just leave us feeling more broken and hopeless and like we're the problem. But after our work together, Michael Ann had this to say: "I can't believe how much this work has changed my life forever. I had no idea how much chronic anxiety and perfectionism I was living with on a daily basis, and that has been completely transformed." Mind you, that's not what she came to me for. It was what was underneath a lot of her symptoms. And the cherry on top is that I was finally able to have penetrative sex. And on top of that, her neck pain and migraines were on a massive healing trajectory. They were much, much less. And the other thing she mentioned was that it really, and I thought it really spoke to what I feel like is at the crux of this work, is that she said it reestablished a baseline for me that will enable me to do anything else I need to do for myself. It removed a lot of the internal blocks and barriers. And oh my gosh, yes to this. This work, yeah, it's about chronic pain. That's why you're coming here, but it's so much deeper than that. It opens up so many opportunities, because our pain is teaching us different skills that we're learning along the way. It's teaching us how to turn inwards, to hear the wisdom of our bodies. And we can use these same tools to address fears that come up with anything that we want to do in life. And in addition, over time, these tools teach you how to do a lot of this work, yourself. And I can't overstate the value that these have, even when pain is no longer even in the picture. They make navigating any difficult scenario, relationship, and decisions that just happens with so much ease, confidence, and resilience, because you're able to step into your own power. I'm just checking out the chat. Colleen, I tend to like analogies. Yes, the second arrow. I'm so glad that was helpful. Yes, I love that. Awesome. Oh, oh, that's awesome, Terry. Yeah, she's on to some really cool things. And Julie says, it's funny, I've been in the compassion and curiosity wonder approach for a while. This last couple of weeks, I've been experiencing a new layer of resistance. Ooh, a huge panic response to engaging in that expansive. Ooh, I love this, Julie. I know that sounds weird to say that, but I get really excited with comments like this. So my practice right now is to notice that, and to intentionally notice when I judge that response. Yes, it's like a deeper layer beyond the symptom engagement itself. It's been a very busy, yeah. Sorry, I'm scanning. This is such a beautiful recognition. And that, yes, often we are talking about like this work in response to pain, but when we can apply this approach to any resistance, like resistance is like my favorite thing to work with. It's so fun, because it's showing us exactly where there is fear being held in the body, where there is a pattern or our body is trying to keep us safe. And we'll talk about that more. So let me not jump ahead. But Julie, beautiful. Like, it sounds super meta, but it's like we can have wonderment about the resistance to wonderment, which sounds crazy, but it's also why I like wonderment, because you can kind of keep layering it out, or bring it out into the outer layers. But anyways, okay, I'm going to get ahead of myself there. Feel free to, if anyone has questions about that or things like that, bring it up in the group, or if we have time for Q&A today. I'm not sure what timing will be, then bring that up. All right, I wanted to do a quick recap. I really want to take the time to thank you for showing up today, whether you are here live or watching the replay. Please just give a moment to give yourself just a hug, or a pat on the back, or a mini celebration for just being here and showing up for yourself. It takes courage to show up for yourself. It takes courage to be here, and I want to really honor that. because it's a big deal. And it's so often so hard to let ourselves just feel into that and let ourselves see that and celebrate ourselves. So I just wanted to, even if it's really uncomfortable to do that, because I know it can be, it's something I still struggle with. I'm going to just give you this little space to do that. And I'm going to give a quick recap. So if you have not watched day one's training and you are here live, stay here. You're in the right place. Hang out today, but just make sure you catch up on day one after this. And if you're watching the replay, though, I do recommend pausing this, watch day one first. It'll give a little more context and then come back to today. All right, now on day one's training, we saw how the shrink response can keep us in the vicious cycle of pain, right? We looked at that. We also looked at the difference between pain and suffering. And a lot of you commented on how powerful this frame was. So I'm so glad it resonated. And just understanding that suffering is an area where we can begin to impact, it starts to give you your power back. Next, we looked at the pain triad and how crucial it is to understand, because if we are not acknowledging its existence, we are stuck searching for a magic bullet or that one thing. And that is a great way to stay stuck. Trust me, I know. I have years of data to prove that one. But the pain triad really helps us recognize that healing and really humaning is always about the both and, not the either or the this or that type of thinking. In fact, this type of thinking, like the black and white thinking, good, bad, this or that, keeps us actually in this vicious cycle of pain and in the shrink response. Something that is so gut-wrenching for me is when I hear about someone who has spent all their time and energy focused on just one aspect of pain and they're not seeing the results. And again, it leaves them feeling like they've done something wrong. When the truth is, it was just only that one area was being looked at, and only one particular aspect was being addressed. And often what we tend to do is to try to double down on that. Like, I'm not journaling hard enough. Let me journal more. Let me meditate more. Let me do more rehab exercises. When really what's needed is more nuance and awareness and spaciousness and just a more expansive, right? We get really tunnel vision when we're in fight or flight. And so we can get tunnel vision on our healing, but we're then trying to heal in the same paradigm that often brought us to where we are in the first place. So we will stay stuck in it because we cannot heal from the same paradigm that created where we are. And what I want to also say is that probably the vast majority of my clients have deeply come to this work already having a very deep understanding of the mind-body connection. I've worked with many healers and coaches who help others with this very work. And what I just want to remind you of is that we just can't see the forest through the trees in ourselves, okay? It is too easy to miss aspects of the pain triad when we are trying to go at it alone or assuming we should know because, oh, well, I should know better, or I've read all the books, or I help others with this work, right? This type of thinking keeps us stuck in the shrink response. This type of thinking is going to keep us in the vicious cycle because the nervous system is designed to heal in community. We need community. We need support. Going at it alone is a trauma response in itself. And we'll touch on this more, but one of the ways to accelerate healing is to be part of a supportive community, because human beings are social beings, even if you're super introverted. We might be social in different ways, but we all need some type of support. And this is why I probably will always have a coach and have support for myself, right? I can't tell you how often I will show up to my coaching session with my coach and she tells me something and I was like, literally just told my client that earlier today. I guess I should listen, for myself, right? If I just need it echoed back to me, because we need that support. And it saves us so much time and energy. So that's why I will always have support in whatever area of life I'm focusing in on. All right. And then next, we talked about the power response and specifically showed you how to start bringing in a wonder-driven mind that helps to put you into this approach. All right. But that wonder-driven mind is just one segment of the whole self integration. So today we are going to be bringing in the emotional and nervous system components, a process that I refer to as introspective inventory, as it's all about turning inwards. We have been taught our whole lives to outsource our body and our power to an external source. You've had subtle or not so subtle comments that tell you that, who to be, how you should show up, or maybe what your body is feeling isn't what it's supposed to be feeling, or it's not worth listening to. And some of these are meant from love. They're meant from a positive place. It's not even malicious. It's just how we interact with each other often. We do it to other people too, by the way. There's not even a judgment of that. It's just a noticing of this, how common it has become to outsource this. And on day one, we talked about how this can show up just around eating food or how we experience pain and just exercise in itself, right? And often as kids, things that we are exposed to. But it also shows up in every aspect from life from a very young age. It might be what expectations on what toys you should have been playing with, or even how you should have been playing with toys, right? How often, do parents come in and correct, oh no, this is what you're supposed to do with this toy, right? Or, oh no, you're playing with it wrong. Just like little things like that it just starts to be like, oh wait, I don't know, right? We start to doubt ourselves. And it might be in, oh, you're wearing that today? Oh, that's what you've chosen to put on? Right after you've chosen an outfit you love. Or maybe it's the quiet down, you're drawing too much attention to yourself, or you are too much type of comments. Or maybe the comments that are like, well, maybe if you started to not be so shy or weird or awkward, you'd have more friends, or you'd have a partner, or something like that, right? Of just the way you're showing up is just not good enough, right? Or maybe you've been told your dreams are unrealistic or crazy, or that you are going to need to learn to live in the real world and bring yourself down if you've expressed wanting to be in a way that just doesn't fit societal norms or what people are used to. All of these impacts us. And here's the thing. I think what's becoming more and more common, and what we're seeing a lot of, is a lot of people wanting to control other people from sharing messages like that. And yes, that's a whole different conversation. We can all, work on being more aware of how our words impact others, but we're never going to be able to control other people and other people's words. This messaging isn't going to die down anytime soon. Like, yes, to making strides and hopefully bettering all of that. But if we're waiting for that to happen, you're going to be waiting your entire life. We cannot rely on everyone else to change their words and how they approach you, because that isn't realistic. It's not going to happen. It's a harsh reality, but it's true. So instead, though, when you feel solid about what you believe, what you want to do, how you want to dress, when you feel solid in that, people can make comments and they just roll off of you a little differently. Doesn't mean you don't get hurt along the way or there's not things that happen, of course, but they don't hit you on the deep level and make you doubt yourself. And that's what we want to gain, that sense of personal power in. I'm sure you've all had that moment where you have put on something maybe you love and someone makes a comment and you're like, man, I can't believe you don't see how awesome this is. Or you share something that you just know is great, and it just doesn't hit the same way when someone makes a negative comment. Or you just know it to be so true that you're like, damn, it sucks that you can't see that, but okay, I'm going to keep doing my thing, right? Because you have that sense of personal power. You're not outsourcing it. You're not looking for someone else's validation or approval. And so that's really what this work is about, because we cannot control what other people are going to think of us. Other people are always going to have opinions. It's about just being solid on yours. All right. So whatever it has been for you, here's the thing. We are all born with deep inner wisdom and a knowing in our bodies. Every single person has this. There are no exceptions. It's a wisdom that comes from within, and it's connected to a universal source of energy. And what you decide to call this, or what you like to think about this, is completely personal. There's no, right way of thinking about this. Some might want to call it the divine or God or Mother Earth or something else entirely. Whatever words resonate for you is what is important here. That never changes. And it's just the proof that its presence is proof that you are whole and infinitely worthy exactly as you are. That always just is. That never shifts. It is always there. It cannot get better. It cannot get worse, right? No one's ever becomes more worthy or less worthy. That's always just there. It just is. And so what we're talking about is taking the time and the intention to connect back into it so we can feel that, so we can embody it. And everything we've been taught to doubt ourselves just moves us away from our own wisdom and this knowing that's there. So this is just about moving us back to it. And there's no judgment or blaming or shaming ourselves when we move away, because we will. That's part of being a human. It's just about bringing yourself back to it. And in fact, that shaming or blaming yourself for not doing it good enough, or not being connected enough, or not feeling worthy enough, even that is just a tool of the patriarchy. Because here's the thing is everyone blames themselves on being the thing that's wrong, right? If everyone is just busy blaming themselves and beating themselves up and having that harsh inner critic, then guess what? It's going to prevent you from looking elsewhere at other systems that actually are responsible and that need the change. It just keeps you distracted. It keeps you focused on beating yourself up versus, hey, where can change actually happen in this world? So here's the thing. We are all adults now. And while it is not your fault that you have been disconnected from your body's wisdom, it is only you that can now be the one to decide to connect back into it. Nobody else can do that for you. You can get guidance along the way and support along the way, but no one else can actually do that for you. And that is a choice that gets to be made over and over and over again. It's not like a one and done type of decision. Our bodies want to be connected to us. They want to be heard. And often our body speaks in a whisper that can be easily ignored or shoved aside, or has a lot of competing voices that just talk louder. I know for myself, when I look back at my journey, my body had been whispering at me for years. I didn't think it was there. I just didn't know how to listen to it. And it wasn't until I got in my car accident that left me with chronic post-concussive syndrome that I had no choice but to listen, because by then my body was screaming at me. Each and every one of our bodies holds this deep wisdom for us. And often what happens, especially when we have pain, we just do what we have been taught, is to keep seeking externally for answers. And don't get me wrong, there is always nuance to this work. There is a massive difference between receiving proper support and just allowing someone else who hasn't been like vetted by your personal wisdom to dictate what is right for you. We can't know it all. This isn't about that. Because there is so much value, of course, and I hope everyone who's here has had a proper medical evaluation, if that's what makes sense for the pain that you've experienced, to ensure that if there is anything that requires a different set of tools, to be ruled out. We have medical experts for a reason, but sometimes the body's wisdom is telling you to go see a certain type of provider, a certain type of practitioner. It may have been your wisdom that guided you here, or likely was your wisdom that guided you here onto this call into the first place. Your wisdom can guide you on who you want to, next to listen to or trust, or, allow your brain to have access to. I've worked with many, many people with complex medical diagnoses who benefit from conventional medical care, and we still do this work, which drastically improves their life. And I've worked with women who, once they finally stopped seeking external advice and turned inwards, their body had all the wisdom that they needed for healing. And everyone in between. We are unique individuals. And just a reminder that chronic pain is complex. There are no dogmas or protocols, and I operate on trusting the choices that you're making for your body and making them with intention, guided by your body's wisdom. But to get to that wisdom, we have to build that trust and connection that has been eroded. But it's a skill. It is like a muscle. It's never lost. It can be built back up. And today we're going to be doing that. So before we dive into the meat of this training and the process, I do want to make sure that you did see the announcement about the massive giveaway that I am doing. And I am not exaggerating when I say this is the biggest giveaway I have ever done, but y'all had me inspired and fired up from the first call. So just a quick recap to the rules of that. There is a giveaway to a free spot in my Pain to Power program. And to be eligible, you must complete the following by August 21st. And this is all in the Facebook group as well. And then an email was sent out. So for each day of the workshop, there's going to be a thread. There's obviously a day 1 thread that's been posted. There will be a day 2 thread that gets posted after this. You just post your favorite takeaway moment within that one. Submit a testimonial. That can be written or video. I will provide instructions likely tomorrow or later today because I want to make sure that people are actually absorbing this material before you're trying to give me feedback on it or write a testimonial on it, because I do want these to be authentic. And so I just ask that you have watched at least 2 of the replays prior to submitting. And then if you want a bonus entry, you get to submit a review of my podcast on Apple. And you can search for Unweaving Chronic Pain on there. I did post a link I think in the email in the group, and just make sure to send me a screenshot of that because it can take a few days to actually show up. So just take a screenshot that you have submitted it or of the actual review before you hit submit. And if you have any questions about that, just let me know. But remember, August 21st at midnight is the final submissions. And I'll be drawing a winner the next day. So if you want to continue on this work, then this is a great opportunity to do that. All right. So one thing to note, and we touched on this a little bit after Julie's comment, is that we are referring a lot to chronic physical pain, but I really want to bring in the awareness that almost everything I will be covering today really can be applied to emotional pain as well, or really big, intense emotions. So just kind of have that in the back of your mind, or like Julie said, that she noticed that she could apply it to the resistance itself. That this work can all be applied to the different layers. So we covered the mind portion of the pain triad last time. This piece is so incredibly important. But the reality is our conscious mind is only, estimates are 0.5 to 5% of our mind. And for simplicity's sake, and for what we're discussing here, I'm going to interchange the subconscious mind and the nervous system when referring to this. Obviously, they are not exactly the same thing from a physiological sense, but what we're talking about of the holder of memories, thoughts, emotions, they are really interchangeable because our nervous system holds onto these things. We talked about that on day 1, and so does the subconscious mind. And it works in a very different way than the conscious mind, which is logical and rational. The subconscious mind is not logical or rational at all. It is often, I like to compare the subconscious mind to trying to communicate with a 2-year-old. It just, you can't rationalize. It doesn't have the same level of, and it's not like a better or worse thing. It just doesn't operate at the same level. And like this iceberg in this picture, we can't completely silo these things out, right? They are a 2-way feedback loop, like we discussed. They are deeply connected. But trying to impact our lives by only addressing the conscious mind, as you can see, is missing where we have some of the largest impact. I think we all know for so many things, trying to just change our thoughts doesn't work. And this is why. But being aware of our initial thoughts, being aware of what our thoughts are, of what our reactions are and what our responses are like being able to see the tip of the iceberg because they show us exactly where to look underneath. It's like exposing, oh, hey, there's something here. There's something deeper. So our body holds on to unprocessed traumas, beliefs, memories, and experiences. It's all held in the subconscious, in the nervous system. This includes traumatic experiences that happened within our lifetime, but also experiences that our body may be holding on to that have been passed down through generations, or even from collective societal experiences. For the purpose of this training, what is most important is that when something is in the subconscious, your body cannot tell that whether it was your actual lived experience, what's a collective experience, what's societal, what's from generations ago, or what's even just from like, oh, that happened when you were 3 and we are now an adult and safe. Like, it really can't tell the difference. It's kind of stuck in that moment of time. And for the most part, for a lot of things, we actually don't need to know the story. Sometimes it's helpful, but nor do we need to know the exact truth or the exact events that happened. This work is very, very different than traditional talk therapy, which places a lot of emphasis on that. Talk therapy has its place, absolutely, but it stays in the conscious mind. And as we saw before, it means its impacts end up being limited, which is often why people will plateau with it. They'll feel like, oh, it helped a bit, and then I kind of hit this plateau. Or they feel like they're hashing out the same story for decades with no shifts or transformations in their life to speak of. But when we tap into what the body is holding, both from an unprocessed trauma, belief, and memory standpoint, as well as from a wisdom standpoint, freaking changes the game. Because not only are you actually rewiring your nervous system and how it sees the world, but now you are tapped into your body's wisdom, which holds what is true for you. And that's going to look different for everybody, because everyone is here on earth for different reasons and holds different gifts and uniqueness. Our body holds messages for us. And truth be told, many mistake messages from parts of ourselves for your body's wisdom. These are not the same things. It is crucial to understand what you are listening to within your body, because sometimes what we hear could be words of, your parent from when you were 3. It could be a gut response that is your fearful 3-year-old desperately trying to appease your parents to stay safe, versus the deep wisdom of your true self. Those are two very different messages. And if we can't discern them, we run into a lot of tensions in this work. Here's the thing. We are all made up of endless parts. That 2-year-old part that began to learn that her cries made her parents angry and therefore left her feeling unsafe. So she learned how to repress them, but that kept her safe. It's made up of the 10-year-old who showed up to school in her new favorite dress, but then got laughed at because it was too much. It's made up of the part that learned that the only way to get you or others to notice you is to be in pain. Imagine these parts as children. You wouldn't treat them all the same. You wouldn't respond to them all the same. And all too often, what happens is we start hearing a message from a younger, scared part, and we think that we mistake that for our body's wisdom, for our true selves. And so we actually hand over the keys to the bus to that younger part, which only freaks them out more, because we're like, oh, you're telling me this? Okay, I should do what you say, which is giving them all the power. It would be equivalent to when a kid screams in fear because they think there's a monster under their bed. And then as a parent, we scream back and run away. We're like, oh my God, that is so scary. You're right. Right? Like, we're joining them in the fear. Can you imagine how that kid would feel? Would they feel safe? Would they feel cared for? Fuck no. That kid would feel even more terrified. Not only are they unable to fend for themselves because they're a kid, but now the adult that is responsible for all their survival needs is also terrified, right? But imagine how that kid would feel if instead their parent recognized their fear, met it with, oh my gosh, you are so scared. Wow. Oh my gosh, that shadow does look really scary. I see that. and then help them see the safety. Hold on, like, you stay here, I'll go investigate. Let's see what this is. Let me investigate under the bed. Oh, look, it's actually this extra fluffy blanket. I stored it here to, to put it out of the way, and it's making the shadow on the wall. Right? Oh, do you want me to stay here for a few minutes to make sure it feels safe now? Let me just hold you for a little bit, and we can together make sure that it feels safe. Right? Can you feel how different that feels versus the parent reacting to the fear and joining them with it? We need to be able to tell what role we are taking and what parts we are listening to. Now, of course, for this child along this way, there might be crying that happens or more fear, and that is all beautiful. They are processing the emotional components. All of that gets to be heard. And in fact, it's probably exactly what that child needed to just clear and move through things that happen during the day. It's like it's almost like an emotional hygiene that has to happen. We all always need to be processing and completing emotional cycles and stress cycles that happen during the day, and emotional release can be one way to do this. So in this moment, the mom in the scenario is acting as the wisdom. She is holding space for all parts of the child that are desiring to be heard in that moment and helping them see the current safety. And so she is choosing the actions that benefit the whole child. She isn't allowing any one of the parts to dictate what happens next, right? Maybe the child is saying, oh, I can't stay in this room. She's not just like being like, oh, you're right, it is way too scary. She's saying, no, like, let me show you the safety, right? Because when we do that, it just actually amplifies the fear. If we're like, oh yeah, you're right, this room is too scary, right? It's just affirming that, and it's creating more fear. She isn't making the fear wrong though, or shaming the child for having it. She's truly hearing and holding it all with compassion. And after everything is processed that was needed to be processed in that moment, chances are the child will drift off to sleep. And this is what our wisdom can do for our bodies. Pain is a part of us. But while at times its present may contribute to our wisdom's next step, right? It needs to be taken into account. It isn't the one that we want calling the shots. We don't want it to be driving the bus. It's the equivalent of the scared kid. It's the equivalent of getting scared with the kid, which only, again, hypersensitizes their system more. And when we bring it back into pain, just results in more pain because it's just affirming the fears of the body. Let me know if that's resonating or if that is all feeling solid in the chat, just to make sure you're all hanging with me. I know that's a lot. I'm gonna take a sip of water. All right. And if you have any questions, please post them in there too. All right. So likely if you're here, you've heard about the mind-body connection. And if you haven't, that's totally cool too. And yes, what we are talking about here relates to it, but it also takes it to the next level. Because so often when it is being referenced, the mind-body connection, it's just referring to one aspect of this connection between our mind and our body, and it's neglecting other ones. And this is where the whole self integration comes into play. Because with whole self integration, it's bringing over time all components together to fully embrace our time here on Earth, to fully say like yes to life. Chances are you've heard of and have attempted some tools related to the mind-body connection. And if you haven't, no worries, you're still in the right place. But feel free again to type in the chat if there's any tools or things that you have tried, whether it's been successful or not. Maybe you've tried a lot of things like different types of journaling or meditation, or maybe you've just dabbled in, one thing, or just have, maybe listened to some podcasts on it and aren't quite sure how to implement. I'd love to hear, though, if this is a familiar concept or it feels more brand new to you. But what you need to know is that the whole self-integration, when nurtured and attended to, will end up improving every area of your life because it impacts how we show up in this world. It impacts the decisions we make. And It'll also lower the suffering we feel because of pain and actually alleviate pain itself over time. But often what gets missed for chronic pain is that nurturing this connection with self, or that being in the body itself, has been deemed as a threat to the nervous system. Often, if our body is in pain, we disconnect from ourselves as a survival mechanism. Right? It's a coping mechanism. We learn to just be in our heads and out of our bodies because trying to go inwards feels too painful or unsafe. So if you've tried mind body techniques and either found yourself unable to implement them, like maybe you just forget all the time. You like set the intention and then you're like, oh my gosh, I just somehow completely forgot. That's a great defense mechanism by the body, by the way. Or maybe you find yourself procrastinating, or when you do them, it leaves you like really uncomfortable and you're like, oh my gosh, that didn't work. Or you just find yourself beating yourself up for not doing it, well enough. Well, some of that can be just a habit of beating ourselves up, which is something to absolutely that we cover in depth because that's perfectionism right there. But also some of it can be your nervous system interpreting this work as a threat. Yes, I'm just checking out what people have done here because it's helpful to know where everybody is familiar. Compassionate inquiry practitioner, awesome. EFT, very beneficial. Love that. Yoga, meditation, vocal expressions. Look at all those things. Yes, yes, yes. So you tried lots and lots of things, all amazing in their own ways. Yes, yes. And I love that because it's not about like, oh, this one tool, right? Because that is just siloing things out. We can all figure out how different tools serve us, and we'll talk about that later. All right. Some left hand, right hand journaling. Oh yeah, that's cool. I found that journal recently. It was a sound. Yeah, Terry, I've tried that too. That's pretty cool. If people can look up what Terry is talking about. Yeah, see, these are all like really different tools, and in a little bit, I'm going to talk about how different tools are just getting at different pieces of this mind-body connection. So, why is introspective inventory so important? Our bodies hold everything we need to know about being the truest, most authentic version of ourselves. They already hold it. Our job is to just discover it along the way. Our bodies also hold suppressed emotions and experiences that haven't been processed through our systems, and these can keep us stuck and in pain. So, what is introspective inventory? It is a part of the whole self-integration process where we dive deep and understand what our nervous system and subconscious are holding so we can then best attend to them. The process is multi-layered, but I'm going to show you aspects of it today. Now, often when you discover all of this, or when people learn how actually becoming more authentic to yourself and embracing these true versions of yourself and letting go of perfectionism and people pleasing and how we think we're supposed to show up in the world, that in itself can be a massive pain alleviator. So it's tempting to want to just jump in and be like, all right, let's just be my authentic self, right? Which is heck yes, hell yes to that. I'm all about that. Or maybe you're like, oh my gosh, I have to process all the layers my body is holding in order to show up in the way, or in order for this XYZ to happen. But let's pause, because urgency never serves us when it comes to this type of work, because our nervous system is going to move at the pace it needs to move at. And urgency kind of kicks us into fight or flight. So we want to take a breath. And I just want to assure you that you never, ever need to perfectly process all the stuff your body is holding on to. You would just be sitting and processing all. It'd be a very boring life. It's not what you have to do, okay? We just need to look at what our body is very clearly presenting in a moment and process through that, because it's kind of just showing you the next step every time. Like, oh, hey, look at this, right? And then in order to do these things, we need to ensure that it does feel safe within your window of tolerance for your nervous system. Some people will be able to explore at different levels from the get-go. Some people can go really deep, really fast, and they already have this baseline level of safety. For others, again, might be a chance that some of this work is deemed as a threat, and actually try to go too fast or too deep, or, show up in the world in a certain way can actually send you into overdrive or send you into a trauma response in itself. So it's just about getting to know your system and not even needing to do it all, right. Sometimes we have to try something and learn how our body responds to know how our system responds. So what we're going to talk about is making sure that we're all on the same page with establishing nervous system safety. But know that this is something that for some could need a lot more attention. It sure did for me. And we do that within the 12-week program. So please take advantage, though, of the Facebook group for now if you have any questions, or feel free to, pop questions in the chat. Because without nervous system safety, we can unintentionally create more dissociation and more disconnection, even with tools that are aimed to build connection. And this is what happened to me. I was doing all the right things, but what I didn't realize was that it was furthering disconnection with my body, because I was doing it from this lens of perfectionism, of thinking I needed to be a certain way, or I should respond in a certain way. And anytime something uncomfortable was happening in my body, I was making it be something wrong. And that was creating more disconnection. It was like, ooh, that doesn't feel safe. That uncomfortable feeling didn't feel safe. So coming at this work as I'm going to process this thing so I can get rid of this uncomfortable feeling, or I'm going to, do this so I never have to feel sadness again, doesn't work, because those are human emotions. Right? It's not about avoiding uncomfortable emotions. It's about learning how to hold them in your system and move through them, so we can continue moving forward and growing in life and do the things we want to do in life, not have those things get in the way. So it's always going to come back to compassionately hearing the message of our body and of our parts. So why is introspective inventory so freaking powerful? It is because it is the only way we can make the subconscious conscious. Okay, we have to go inwards into the body. Our cognitive brain, as we saw in that iceberg picture, is not aware of what is in the subconscious. I mean, it is aware, it's impacting it, but we don't know what it's holding unless we go into the body. And so one of the fastest, most effective ways to do this is by going through the introspective inventory process. And of course, within the program, I specifically teach these in a way that is, there's just not enough time in today's training, but you're getting the most important stuff. But it also helps turn big, scary, abstract things that your brain perceives as a threat into something that can be much more tangible and concrete and feel a lot more safe to be with. And when we do that, it's exactly how we reduce the sensitization of the nervous system, which is what alleviates pains and helps us integrate our whole selves. His whole self integration allows you to be in charge of your life. When you can integrate your whole self, you are no longer stuck feeling controlled by or at the mercy of pain or even painful emotions or thoughts or beliefs. And these are all skills that you can learn. And up until now, chances are no one has just taught you how to do them at this level, because it doesn't get taught. It's not taught in school, that's for sure. And I haven't seen it taught in this way in any other program. So before we move into the process, I do want to make sure that we are establishing some nervous system safety. And I want to start by asking, what does safety mean to you? So type it in the chat. What does safety mean to you? When do you feel safe? I'm going to give you a moment to just sit with that. So I want to know, it's like, is there a prerequisite to feeling safe in your body? And maybe you've heard me speak to this before, but as long as your definition of safety is based on the complete absence of pain, emotion, thoughts, challenges, and is requiring, for lack of a better way to say it, a total fantasy world where we just feel perfectly regulated and even keel at all times, you'll never win. because your brain will actually be stuck in threat mode, which sensitizes your nervous system because it interprets then just having human emotions as a threat. And it only actually then makes it better at finding threats and increasing your pain levels. So how do we find safety when our brain probably has been trained to be really good at finding threats? Yes, I love what I'm seeing so far. Yeah, I feel safe when my feelings are allowed and not minimized. Yes, that's awesome, Colleen. Sorry, my scroll button is like not working on my mouse and it's making this very difficult. Give me a second. Self-regulation and yes. So, and Bernadette, I love this. So like self-regulation and co-regulation are amazing tools. And I'm not saying that you are doing this, but I'm just going to speak to this because you brought these up. This absolutely might not be you, but so often as people almost get addicted to these tools because, and we use them as a form of bypassing because it's like, oh my gosh, I feel anger in my body, must regulate it back down. And often what that's doing is actually sending us back into a freeze response. Now, there's time and place for these tools. Again, it's not that anything is wrong with those tools. Self-regulation is amazing, but we also want to make sure that our body has capacity to be with some discomfort because that is required for processing new concepts. When I'm control, yeah, I believe that it's a false premise. Yeah, it often can be because we live in a very uncertain world that we will never have control, and we can find like control in the uncertainty or find safety in the uncertainty. Understanding my body's response. Yes, love that. Safety equals calm. Yeah, Christina, this is another one where it's like when we feel dysregulated or unsafe, when we aren't feeling calm, you can see where it can make it hard to do some of this deeper processing, because often some of this deeper processing brings up actually a lot of intensity. And so then we can't process because we have to be able to hold the intensity to process. Calm, yeah, awesome. When I'm in control, yeah, awesome. Okay, heard and seen fully, beautiful. Beautiful. And yeah, breath is such a beautiful way to connect back. And I always tell a funny story of like, for me, even just the act of connecting to my breath would like throw up my threat response. Because that's what I always heard. It's like, connect to your breath. And I'm like, mine makes me freak out. I literally had written on my birth plan, like, do not tell me to breathe or I will like punch you in the face, because no. But I have since done a lot of work and now feel the safety that everyone was telling me about of being able to connect to your breath. Yes, nature is such a beautiful way to bring that on. Julie, I love that you brought that up. Yes. And and I just want to say that speaks to also the importance of remembering, like, this work is not about sitting in your room by yourself doing it. Sometimes it is putting yourself in an environment that aids healing, which nature is a beautiful example of that. All right. So the first step in finding nervous system safety is to blow up the belief of what you even think safety is in the first place. According to the dictionary, safety is defined as the condition of being safe from undergoing or causing hurt, injury, or loss. But sorry, Merriam-Webster, I just don't agree with this definition, at least not when it comes to the type of nervous system safety we are referring to here in this presentation. Because according to that, if you're in pain, or if you're having intense emotions, or if your nervous system is dysregulated, then you can't have safety, right? So that means if you're currently experiencing a hurt, then you can't be safe. So basically it means that if you have chronic pain, you're kind of fucked. It becomes an impossible scenario because you feel like you need to be pain-free to find safety, but you first need safety to heal. It's like a lose-lose scenario. Personally, I'm not a fan of unwinnable lose-lose scenarios. I'm like, not about those. It feels really pointless. So I have a really awesome secret for y'all. When your rules, beliefs, or definitions aren't serving you, you get to just make new ones up. Because everything in this world is basically made up anyway. So you can just like make up whatever you want. So I coined a new definition of safety. And I did this for myself, 5-6 years ago, because I just could see that I was constantly feeling like I was battling this. I did not know how to do this work because I kept feeling unsafe in it, but I was supposed to feel safe doing this work, right? It felt like this total lose-lose. So I coined a new definition of safety, which is nervous system safety. And the definition I assigned it was the ability to trust that you can and will move through any incident, pain, or emotional state. And stop. It does not mean we are trusting that we will move through gracefully, perfectly, or in any way that leads to some outcome or massive personal growth or breakthrough. It just means we trust we will move through it, that there is no expected outcome or guarantee that things will even be better on the other side. That all just gets to be stripped away because this baseline level of safety has to come first before we can build on it. With chronic pain, there are so many layers, and because of the nature of pain, it can feel unsafe to be in our body. So we want to start to feel safe being in our body, even with pain, even with dysregulation, even with intensity of emotions, even with total numbness, even with not knowing what the heck it feels like to be in your body if you are so used to being dissociated that you almost can't feel anything. But here's the thing is that you've already done it. You've already lived with whatever it is you're experiencing it. You've already survived it for how long now? Like I said, there's no outcome measures attached to this. You're alive right now if you're listening to me, right? Which tells me you have made it through how many days or years with chronic pain. So next time a wave of pain comes or a super uncomfortable emotion hits, ask yourself, have you made it through something like this before? It doesn't need to be the exact scenario. More like, have you made it through anger before? Have you made it through a pain flare-up before? Yes, because you're here. No one can answer no to these questions because every human has made it through these scenarios. And again, remember, I didn't say gracefully or perfectly or that it's totally resolved. I just said that you've made it through. And this is not trying to imply that there isn't room for growth and learning new skills or to move through it in a different way or in a less painful way. That all gets to be here too. We're just talking right now, baseline that we have moved through it. Because the second we attach expectations and requirements to baseline safety, we kind of screw ourselves over unintentionally. You can always grow. We can all do things in a more preferred way, in a way that serves us better. And I'm all for that. And in order to thrive, we have to have a baseline level of safety. We thrive from safety when safety has been established, which is why I'm all about having like the lowest common or baseline of safety, because it actually allows thriving much faster versus feeling like we're stuck in survival mode until we, accomplish XYZ amount of regulation or XYZ amount of pain alleviation. Then we're still stuck in survival, whereas we can actually start thriving from different states today by just adopting a new definition. So again, but the room for improvement is not a lack of safety. There's just more room for thriving. So we just starting to notice the difference between these two. All right. So many of you, kind of shifting gears now, many of you have likely heard of inner work, somatic work, healing work, again, mind body work, all of these things. I just want to say we really lack any sort of consistent semantics or vocabulary around this work. Like there are not agreed upon definitions. I struggle with this all the time. Feel like we need a whole new dictionary for this type of work because there's absolutely no consistency. So I want to draw attention to the four main types of inner work. And because what I often hear is I've already tried this, or maybe I know how to do somatic work, or, I already journal or whatever it is. And every time what I discover when I'm working deeper with someone is that often it's just one aspect of a type of inner work that was focused on, and the other ones just weren't addressed yet. So there are way more subtypes than this. And there are, what I did not bring into this are the different tools that you could use to do each one of these. So for instance, like journaling could technically fall under each category if you do it in certain ways, right? So, or it could be an audio process, or it could be, a walk done with a certain intention. So there's about 1 million different tools. These are more looking at these at a higher level. And it's all about what works for you. But I do find for healing and thriving, having all 4 of these types included in some ways is really the recipe that's needed. And within my introspective inventory process and within the program, we do address all 4 types of these. And so there is meditation and mindfulness. This is often the one people tend to be most exposed to. And again, this is a huge, broad category. And this really is, the goal is about bringing you into the present moment, awareness, and quieting your mind. Or just bringing you, again, meditation and mindfulness can, each are, they're a little different in themselves. Meditation is often more about quieting your mind. Mindfulness is more about what is present right now. And both are amazing and beautiful. Then there are guided journeys. These often, not always, are about guiding you to the inner wisdom held in your body, or maybe some might be guiding you to, other spiritual support or anything like that. That's kind of, it's almost like just guiding you to more expansive wisdom and vision, whether it's from your own body or provided by another source that hopefully you have deemed trustworthy. Then there is a releasing and a processing of emotions. This allows emotional release, like we talked about earlier, that is necessary. It's like this emotional hygiene. It's like taking, when we take showers, right? We're just cleaning off the dirt from the day. It's like we also just need to move through emotions that happen during the day and through our lifetime. This allows us to complete stress cycles. It helps us thaw from the freeze response. And again, this is where we talk about nervous system safety. Often you need a lot of safety to hold, because a lot of intensity can come up in this type of inner work. And this type of inner work is, all of these are so powerful. This one is so freaking powerful though, because it's like literally, it's like emptying your body of things that it's just been holding on to. So it creates so much more spaciousness, and often can release a lot of tensions held in the body. And then there's deep healing and rewiring. This is, we talked about at the beginning of how parts can kind of get stuck in a moment of time. It's like they're reliving the same trauma over and over. It's like the 3-year-old part is still, sitting scared in response to, their parents yelling or something. And they're just like stuck there. They don't realize that you now are an adult. So the deep healing and rewiring work shifts parts into safety. And it can be really deeply transformative of your worldview and your life view, because all of a sudden your nervous system isn't fighting each other anymore. There aren't parts screaming of like, oh my gosh, don't do that, that's unsafe, because they now see the safety that is there. This can also be where a lot of generational healing and ancestral work is done, because often, again, we have parts or just parts of our DNA and cellular level that is stuck thinking that we are still in the 17th century or whatever. So this really helps you safely embody thriving. So as you can see, it's like each piece is really actually quite crucial to thriving, to showing up in this world in a different way. And each piece has its part in pain alleviation and stepping into your personal power. And knowing when and how to use each type is crucial. And notice if your mind is jumping to like, oh, but which one is the best one? Which one's the most important one, right? And there isn't one. It would be like me listing out, if we're doing something on nutrition, it's like we're listing out carbs, proteins, fats, and water. Like you just need them all. There isn't a best one. We can't silo them out. Different things serve different purposes, and different bodies will thrive with different ratios of each. And so within the Pain to Power program, especially with the support, you gain the skill of knowing which to use when. You start to learn how to understand what would be most supportive for your body in that moment, because all of these, again, are ingrained within the program in order to best support your goals. But today, I do want to take the time to do a guided journey one. Okay. So I'm going to stop the screen share just because I don't have a slide for that. Now I can see all your faces much better anyways. All right, so we're going to be going into a guided process. And again, this is a guided journey one. And what I want to invite you to do is to just start settling in, get comfortable as I'm talking, but to really let go of any expectations whatsoever. And just fully notice what comes up. Remember, now we've just talked about how there can be so much safety in anything that happens in your body. So feel free to settle in. I'm going to drink some water first. If it feels good, or actually, first, what I'm going to do is just a little bit of a quick safety practice of taking a moment before you close your eyes or anything, is to just look around and see the safety that is around you right now. Because you shouldn't be doing this if you're not somewhere that's physically safe. So just reminding your system of like, there are no, saber-toothed tigers in the corner. If you need to go and like close a door or do something to just make you feel like safe with your eyes closed. And of course, if you are not in a place that is safe to close your eyes, then wait to do this later. So after you looked around, seen your safety, if it feels good to close your eyes down, if that feels something like you're comfortable with, go ahead and close your eyes down. Or you can always let them rest on something in front of you, knowing that you have complete agency along this process. This doesn't have to be deeply meditative if that feels just not accessible to you. That you can open your eyes at any time if needed, and you can always close them again. Noticing the temperature of the air on your skin. Noticing whatever pace your breath is wanting to breathe you, not needing to change it. Noticing how right here and right now, your brain might think thoughts because that's what brains do. Your heart continues to beat. And your breath continues to breathe you. That there's nothing you need to do or change. That you get to just be exactly as you are. Allowing yourself to sink down a little deeper and be completely held by your chair or whatever surface you are on. Held by the earth. And held by gravity. And inviting in your authentic wisdom, your inner guidance, whatever you like to call it, to be leading and guiding you here today. If it feels supportive, you can invite in your breath to take up a little bit more space, but never needing to force it. And so as you're here in this space, gonna allow yourself in your mind's eye, and whether you are someone who is really visual and can see this really well, or if you feel like you don't see things well, it might just be a knowing, or maybe you connect more to smell or sound. So just connecting in with what is right for you and trusting what comes up. Is you're going to allow yourself to notice that around you in your mind's eye, you are in a meadow. And as you look down, you notice that you are standing on a path. And so you start walking at whatever pace feels good along that path, taking in the beauty and the safety of your surroundings. It's the exact right temperature. It's the exact right weather for you. And as you look ahead on that path, continuing to walk down it, you see a forest. And this forest is really inviting and nurturing. Feels very safe. And it can be made of whatever trees you like. Could be a mixture of palm trees and evergreens right next to each other. It gets to appear in exactly the way that just leaves you feeling wanting to walk through it. And so as you enter in the forest, just taking a moment to look at the trees, continuing down the path. And you start to notice that each tree along the path has a special glow to it. And it turns out that each tree has healing and holding and nurturing properties. Each one is deeply rooted into the earth and into universal supportive healing spaces. And you don't even need to know really what that means or what that looks like. It's just knowing the truth of that. And each one is guided by your wisdom, your spiritual support, and is right for you. And so as you're walking along the path, you're going to invite up parts of yourself that are looking to be held with more compassion and nurturing. Maybe parts that have some unmet needs. Maybe parts that are holding fears, worries, anxieties, pain. And as you're walking, imagine dropping off each part onto its own tree. And don't worry, we'll be coming back for these. They aren't being left here. Each part, just as you walk, you don't even need to be aware of it happening. It's just giving the permission for each part to be dropped off. And while we're continuing on with this guided journey, each part is going to be attended to by your wisdom, by your guidance, and it will be fed and nurtured, imbued with love, compassion, and any healing that is just right for it where it is right now. And you don't need to be aware of any of this happening. This is all just happening in the background. So you continue to walk down this path, letting parts hop off exactly when they're ready, feeling lighter and lighter each step of the way. Allowing that to continue to happen. And when you look ahead, you notice a little clearing. And in that clearing, there is a space for you to rest. Maybe it's a hammock, a cozy chair, just a nice patch of grass. Again, whatever feels just safe and inviting. Could be a big cozy bed. Gets to be whatever you want because you get to create this in your mind's eye. And walking towards it, feeling lighter and lighter each step of the way. And by the time you approach it, you are noticing that you are completely embodying your unburdened self. You have temporarily allowed any parts, stories, beliefs, ancestral parts to all just be held by the trees. And so you get to take a seat or lie down and feel completely supported in this space. Breathing into what it feels like to be touching in to your true self, your unburdened self. Placing a hand on your heart. Taking a breath here. And asking yourself, what do I need to know right now? Allowing this message to come in the form of words, in a feeling. Maybe an object even appears. Or knowing that this answer might be presented later today through something you see, or just that pops into your head when you're showering later or something like that. Sometimes it could be delayed. And then asking yourself, what is the next right thing for me? Again, just feeling into the answer and however it appears or however you feel about it. Taking a moment to thank yourself. Breathing into this space, knowing that you can visit this again at any time. And you get to come back here and you can ask any questions you want as well. And slowly releasing your hand. And then standing up from where you're sitting in your mind's eye. Walking back down the path. And as you walk back down the path, the parts that are truly parts of you will just naturally come back to you because they are all part of you and your story and your unique self. They all get to have a home with you and to be integrated in with you, knowing that they have received any healing and nurturing that was exactly right for them. And any stories or limiting beliefs or things that have just gotten hooked onto you along the way, those are all dissolved by the earth. Those don't need to hop back onto you. The trees already took care of that, though. Knowing you are just picking back up the parts that are truly you. Walking back along the path towards the meadow. Coming back into the meadow. Feeling the sun on your skin. And then slowly wiggling your fingers and your toes. And whatever it feels right for you, opening your eyes, stretching, moving, and coming back into the here and the now. Letting that all settle in. If you need to take any notes or write anything down from your experience, please take the time to do that. And if you are open to sharing what came up, feel free to do that in the chat, or you can even unmute yourself and share if that feels right, because I'd love to hear. Just gonna give everyone a minute to come back though. And knowing that whatever came up was exactly right for you right now. Often people can have different types of responses, whether it's this really powerful vision or words or phrases or a deep knowing that just feels so warm and juicy and empowering. Other people might experience a nothingness, almost a lack of something. Sometimes something more unexpected or even negative or dark feeling can happen. And so just know that whatever was your experience has a place. And remembering that this is one type of process, that connecting to your unburdened self is powerful in so many ways because it can help guide us along our journey. And it's a powerful guidance piece to connect to. See, notice how much my mind wanted to distract. Yes. I love that, Bernadette. And I just want to say I relate so much of struggling to see the meditation, and one, just knowing that you don't actually have to visually see it. I do not really see things visually. It's more of a knowing that it's there. But even before that, everything just used to be black. It was kind of a total absence. And that's often a massive protective layer. And there's some really cool things we can do that. So know if that is you, you are not alone. Mountain lake surrounded by aspens, evergreens. Oh, I love that. Cool water supporting you. My infant self was cradled by the weeping willow. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that, Julie. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Every time I'll just tell a funny story, is that every time I used to do processes like this, I would try something. I remember this one time there was someone leading a process, and I felt like everyone was sharing the most powerful, beautiful visuals. And it was this future self guided thing. And it was what would your future self be doing or wearing or saying? I can't remember exactly what the prompt was. And I literally just imagined myself screaming bloody murder. And I was like, that can't be right. But at first it's I used to judge myself for things like that. And then I made it mean something wrong. But when I actually really allowed whatever reaction I have, which mine are always tend to be kind of dark, so please know that you're not alone, or you're in the right place if that is you too at times. That actually, the more I allowed it and moved through it and learned how to support that, the more now I can do things like this. And I'm oh, this is where people are having these really blissful experiences. Now I get to have these. I just had to move through a lot of layers first. Oh yeah, Terry, I'm sorry about your husband. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and that is a beautiful awareness of like how our, our attention can be pulled. And sometimes our attention needs to be pulled. And if he is currently, safe, is it safe for you to have 20 minutes to spend on your own? And can you come into that level of safety? But yeah, no, that's beautiful awareness. I'm glad that that was helpful and a good eye opener for sure. And sending lots of love to him because that's tough. And yeah, that's hard if it's, especially when you're not used to that, that can feel really unsettling. And so, yeah, this can be so powerful. And again, I want to just remind everyone that it's just one type, right? So often we can get these messages if we're able to, and then it's like, can we act on them? Can we take the next step that we hear? Can we apply it into our everyday life? Do you feel confident that it was a voice of your unburdened self, or could it have been a part that didn't quite want to disconnect from you, right? And it's like, do you feel like you could tell the difference? And being able to apply this work with so much nuance and take it into your lived experience. Oh my goodness, Julie, your son's so cute. Is so important along this way. And this is really where the rest of the whole self integration process comes in, because we've covered now the mind piece with that wonder driven mind, the emotional piece with the nervous system, with this introspective inventory. And this is one like teensy part of it, the introspective inventory. There's a lot more to it, as you could probably tell from today. We also want to come back to our body and body harmony, which is not just our physical body, but also how we show up in the world and the actions we take. And again, you can feel how they're all intertwined, because how you show up in the world, what actions you take, can depend a lot on what your nervous system is holding on to, and what thoughts you might be having, and what amount of nervous system safety you have. So make sure you come back to day 3, where we're really going to be tying this all together. And so for now, I know after we do processes, you're a little like, okay, so I'm not going to talk too much, so don't worry, but go ahead, drink water. If you can get outside for a little bit, breathe some fresh air, that can feel really, really nice to help integrate a process like that. Know that a lot of times things just continue to integrate in the background. And if there are any questions that come up, I'm happy to stick around for a couple more minutes to answer them here, or please post them in the group. Feel free to ask away. And yes, and then I will see you on Thursday for day 3, where we're really bringing everything together. Oh, let's see. What came up was fears. What came up was fear. Oops, hold on. Constrictions are not enough. Is my parents' voice. Yes, beautiful awareness, Julie. Laying down under the trees, connected to myself. To a time it was free. Yes. Grown ass 51-year-old woman. I love that. Always amazing to tap back into my authentic me. And reminded me I'm overdue to take my hammock on a hike. Yes, I love that. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And yeah, it's amazing how much we just carry other people's viewpoints and fears, and totally natural, right? It's really, I think we sometimes can think, oh, we shouldn't be carrying that, or like, oh, this is wrong. Or even as parents, we think that we shouldn't be putting our views on our children. But no, it's not about that. We're going to put our views on our children. In fact, if you're not putting your views on your children, then other people just are. So that's a whole different conversation. But it's about then realizing, once you're grown up, you get to choose, do I still want to keep this viewpoint? Is this serving me? And that you get to make the choice. I feel like we do not have, I could go off on a huge rabbit hole right now, any type of like guidance from teenage to adulthood. And we just are kind of stuck living in childhood mode until something kind of forces us to wake up to realize we are a grown ass adult. And we're like, oh shit, I have responsibilities now, and no one taught me how to do this. What do I do with myself? And we forget that we have that agency and control, and it can be really unsettling and uncomfortable. So beautiful awareness. Oh, I'm so glad that was insightful. See you, Julie. Yes, you all are so welcome. Lots of tears. Yes, to that meaning something. Tears are so powerful. They are such a beautiful release. So let them flow. And thank you all so much for being here, for coming along that journey with me, and for your vulnerability in doing that, and your bravery in showing up today. I love seeing this commitment you all have to yourselves and to your journey. It is absolutely beautiful. Please don't hesitate to post any questions. I will post a day 2 takeaway thing shortly in the group. So I'd love to hear what your powerful takeaways were for today. And if no one has any questions, I will let you all go. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.